It's quite a dramatic shift we're seeing in India's energy priorities. The latest projections, they indicate a really substantial increase in sugar diversion towards ethanol production.
Yeah, a predicted 35 lakh tons for 2024-25. That's a significant jump from the previous year's 21.5 lakh tons.
It really signals a major push in India's biofuel strategy.
Indeed. And for you, our listener, keenly following daily current events for your UPSC mains, and maybe even thinking about prelims relevance. Well, this pivot towards ethanol is a particularly important area to dig into. It directly impacts key parts of your syllabus, energy policy, agricultural economics, environmental sustainability.
Absolutely. This isn't just a headline, it's a strategic evolution with some pretty big implications.
Right.
So in this deep dive, our mission is basically to get beyond the surface level news and really understand the details of India's ethanol blending program.
Let's unpack it.
Yeah, we'll explore the fundamental question, like what is ethanol? We'll look at the benefits they're aiming for, address the concerns, and there are definitely concerns, and importantly, analyze potential ways to do this sustainably.
And we're drawing on some recent in-depth analysis for these insights today.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's begin by unpacking the basics. What exactly is ethanol? Chemically, it's CHE euros, and fundamentally, it's a renewable biofuel.
Renewable because it comes from plants, right? Agricultural stuff.
Primarily, yes. In the Indian context, it's largely from resources like sugarcane, maize, rice, wheat, other kinds of biomass.
And initially in India, the big focus was molasses, wasn't it? That thick, syrupy stuff left over from making sugar.
Yeah, that was the main feedstock for a while. But it's important to remember, molasses isn't the only way.
Right. Other methods exist.
Correct. You can get it through fermentation of starches and even some petrochemical processes like ethylene hydration. But agriculture is the main road here.
Got it. And its properties, what makes it usable?
Well, it's pretty straightforward. It's a clear, colorless liquid. Dissolves easily in water and most organic solvents. From an engine perspective, the key thing is its high octane number.
High octane. That's good for the engine. Prevents knocking.
Exactly. Boosts efficiency, stops that knocking sound. It's also flammable, obviously, has specific melting and boiling points,
Right.
Standard chemical properties.
Okay. And we usually see it mixed with gasoline, right?
Usually, yeah.
Ethanol.
Pure ethanol is around 99.9%.
Yeah.
But blends are common. E10, that's 10% ethanol. 90% gasoline is probably the most widespread one you'll find.
I think I've seen E10 at the pump.
Because then you have E15, E20,
Yeah.
even E85, which is up to 83% ethanol. But that's mainly for special, flexible fuel vehicles. E10 is dominant for regular cars right now.
And it's not just fuel, is it? It has other uses.
Oh, absolutely. It's used loads elsewhere.
Yeah.
As a solvent in labs and industry, disinfectant, very important recently, of course,
Yeah.
in pharmaceuticals, various cleaning products. It's even used as a dehydrating agent sometimes. Really versatile stuff.
Okay. But what about the downsides? Health impacts, environmental impacts.
Okay, health-wise, direct exposure. Well, it can irritate your skin. Breathing in a lot can cause drowsiness, maybe nausea. Environmentally, it's sort of a mixed picture.
How so?
Well, the good thing is it breaks down pretty readily into carbon dioxide and water. But its combustion can contribute to photochemical smog, which isn't great for air quality, especially in cities. And if it gets into soil or water, its decomposition can use up dissolved oxygen, which can harm aquatic life. Under conditions without oxygen, it might even produce methane, a much stronger greenhouse gas than CO2.
Okay, so not entirely clean then. Good to have that context. Now let's shift to the bigger picture. Ethanol blending in India. This program has been around for a while, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, it's not new. The Ethanol Blending Program, or EBP, actually kicked off way back in 2003. Started with a pretty modest goal, just 5% blending.
5%. And it's grown since then.
Significantly. The real push came with the National Policy on Biofuels in 2018, and then it was amended in 2022. That really ramped up the ambition.
What are the targets now?
The big one is 20% blending E20, aiming for that by the financial year 2025-26. So pretty soon. And the longer-term goal is even higher, maybe 30% by 2030.
Wow, 20% by 2025-26. Are we getting close?
Making good progress. The data shows we hit about 12.06% in 2022-23, then it climbed to 14.6% in 2023-24.
So the trend is definitely upwards.
Exactly. And like you said at the start, the projection puts us on track to hit that 20% target by March 2025. It's a significant acceleration.
And what have been the benefits so far? Can we quantify them?
We can, yeah. The numbers are quite impressive. By 2024, India had built up an ethanol production capacity of 1,600 crore liters. That's huge.
And financially?
Economically, the big win is reduced oil imports. Estimates suggest savings of around Rs 1.06 lakh crore in foreign exchange, just by using less imported crude.
That's a massive saving environmentally.
Also, significant gains reported, a reduction of about 544 lakh metric tons in co-Euros emissions, and it substituted roughly 181 lakh metric tons of crude oil. So definite wins for the economy and the environment on paper.
Those are certainly compelling figures, but like with any major policy shift, there must be downsides or challenges being discussed.
Absolutely. It's not all straightforward. One of the primary concerns revolves around food security.
Ah, the food versus fuel debate.
Precisely. While the initial focus was sugarcane molasses, a byproduct meeting these higher targets means using more direct food sources, things like maize, rice, even broken rice.
And the worry is?
The worry is diverting these crops away from people's plates towards fuel tanks. Could it lead to food shortages or price hikes? Plus, if ethanol becomes much more profitable, farmers might just choose to grow fuel crops instead of food crops.
And are we seeing any signs of that? The analysis we're using mentions something about rice prices.
Yes, it pointed to a 14.51% rise in retail rice prices back in 2023. Now, correlation isn't causation, but it does raise flags about affordability, especially for poorer households. That link between energy policy and food prices is critical for UPSC folks to grasp.
Definitely. What other concerns are there?
Land use is another huge one.
Right, growing all that feedstock takes up space.
A lot of space. Just hitting the E20 target is estimated to need around 7.1 million hectares of land. That's roughly 3% of India's total gross cropped area.
3% sounds like a lot when land is already scarce.
It is. And it puts pressure not just on land, but water, fertilizers, pesticides, all those agricultural inputs.
And is it an efficient use of land compared to other energy sources?
Yeah, that's a key point.
Yeah.
The analysis highlighted a pretty stark comparison, especially with maize. Generating the same amount of energy from maize ethanol reportedly takes about 187 times more land than generating it from solar panels.
187 times. Wow.
Yeah. Given India's challenges with feeding its population and limited land, that kind of land inefficiency is a serious question mark for long-term strategy.
Makes sense. And you mentioned water pressure, too.
Yes, water resources are crucial. Ethanol production is quite water-intensive.
How intensive?
Figures vary, but it's roughly 8 to 12 liters of water needed for every single liter of ethanol produced.
That's a lot.
It is, and it puts direct pressure on India's groundwater, which is already stressed in many areas. It's also competing directly with water needed for, well, growing food. Another critical overlap for UPSC aspirants' energy versus water needs.
Okay, food, land, water. What about the environmental benefits? We heard the KIO reduction numbers, which sounded good, but is it the whole story?
It's perhaps a bit more nuanced. While those KIO savings from replacing gasoline are real, you have to look at the whole life cycle.
Like the production process itself.
Exactly. Ethanol plants themselves are often classified under the red category of polluting industries by environmental agencies.
Why is that?
They can emit hazardous substances during production, things like acetaldehyde and formaldehyde. These can contribute to local air, water, and soil pollution. So while we're cutting tailpipe emissions, we need to be careful not to just shift the pollution problem.
So the net benefit might be less than it first appears.
Potentially, yes. Or at least it requires careful management of the production facilities. It might offer only modest overall emission reductions when you factor everything in. Maybe not the massive climate solutions some hope for on its own towards net zero 2070.
That's a really important point. And technology plays a role here too, I imagine.
It does. India mostly relies on what's called first generation, or 1G ethanol technology, primarily using that sugarcane molasses or food grains.
And that's less advanced.
Generally, yes. Compared to second generation 2G, which uses agricultural waste like stalks and leaves, or third generation 3G using algae, 1G is often less energy efficient overall and has those direct links to food and land use. Advanced technologies being used elsewhere are often more sustainable.
So there's a tech gap that affects sustainability.
You could say that, yes. It limits how sustainable and efficient we can be right now.
And finally, any practical challenges, like getting the blended fuel to people.
That's the final piece, infrastructure.
Yeah.
The system for blending the ethanol with gasoline and then distributing it, especially out in rural areas, it's still underdeveloped in places.
So even if we make it, getting it to the pumps everywhere is a hurdle.
Exactly. It's a barrier to scaling up the program effectively across the entire country.
Okay, those are some significant challenges. Food security, land, water, actual pollution, tech gaps, infrastructure. So the big question is, how does India move forward? How can we balance this push for ethanol with sustainability?
Well, there are several potential paths and lots of discussion around them. One really promising area is promoting that third generation, or 3G ethanol.
The algae one?
Yeah, using microalgae. The cool thing is algae can often be grown in wastewater, sewage, even seawater, so it doesn't compete for prime agricultural land or freshwater.
That sounds much more sustainable. Is there support for this?
Yes. Initiatives like the Pradhan Mantri Jai Van Yojana are specifically aimed at supporting 2G and 3G biofuel projects. It's a critical area of innovation for UPSC aspirants to track.
Okay, 3G is one route. What else?
Strengthening the environmental rules around production is key.
How?
Things like implementing mandatory life cycle assessments, LCAs. That means looking at the entire environmental footprint, from growing the feedstock right through to burning the fuel.
A cradle-to-grave view.
Exactly. Also, promoting or even mandating technologies like carbon capture and storage, CCS, at the ethanol plants themselves, could help mitigate their emissions. And maybe using carbon credits to incentivize cleaner feedstocks and processes.
Makes sense. What about the water issue? That seemed like a big one.
Definitely. Investing in and encouraging advanced irrigation for biofuel crops is essential. Think drip irrigation, rainwater harvesting.
Does that actually work?
Oh, yes. The analysis mentioned Maharashtra, where sugarcane farmers using drip irrigation cut their water use by up to 40%. It shows the potential.
40% is huge.
It is. And another big step would be mandating zero liquid discharge, or ZLD, technology in all ethanol plants.
ZLD, what's that?
Basically, it means the plant has to treat and recycle all its wastewater internally. Nothing gets discharged. It drastically cuts the need for fresh water.
Aren't companies doing this?
Some are. Balrampur Chini Mills was cited as an example, reducing their water consumption by over 60% using ZLD. It's technologically feasible.
Okay, better tech for water and for land use. Any ideas there?
One approach is integrating biofuel crops with forestry, what's called agroforestry.
Like growing them together.
Yeah, in a way that optimizes land use. Maybe planting something like sweet sorghum, which can be used for ethanol alongside trees. It could make the land more productive overall without just clearing more forest or farmland. Relevant for sustainable agriculture discussions.
Interesting. And lastly, any other strategies?
Thinking in terms of a circular economy is vital, meaning we need to find ways to use everything, minimize waste. Under the National Bioenergy Program, there's a push to repurpose the byproducts from ethanol production.
Like what?
Things like the leftover mash can be used for animal feed or fertilizers. You can even produce biogas from some waste streams. And of course, reusing treated wastewater wherever possible, maybe for cooling or irrigation. Closing the loop.
Okay, so pulling it all together, it's clear India's ethanol program is a major initiative. Big potential benefits for energy security, emissions, the rural economy.
Definitely holds promise. But as we've discussed, it's equally clear that navigating these sustainability challenges, food, land, water, pollution, tech, is absolutely crucial for it to be a long-term success and a net positive for the country.
Right. We've touched on the main concerns, but also the potential solutions. Shifting towards advanced biofuels like 3G, tightening regulations with things like LCAs and ZLD, smarter water use, agroforestry, circular economy thinking.
Exactly. A whole suite of measures needed.
And for you, our listener, deep in UPSC prep, this whole topic really weeds together so many critical themes, doesn't it? Relevant for both mains and prelims.
Absolutely.
It really makes you think. As a future administrator, how would you prioritize and balance these competing demands? Energy security is vital, food security is non-negotiable, environmental sustainability is essential. How do you juggle all that in the context of biofuels?
It's a complex policy challenge, right at the intersection of energy, agriculture, environment, economics, all core syllabus areas.
Precisely. We really hope this deep dive gave you a more rounded understanding of this complex and important issue.
And if you found this breakdown useful for your UPSC journey, please do give us a like and subscribe so you don't miss our future deep dives on current topics.
Yes, and please leave a comment. Any further questions you have or your own take on India's ethanol strategy, we'd love to hear it.
Your perspectives are always welcome.
And just to remind you, the information we discussed today was drawn from articles and analysis published in the Hindu. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive.